You heard about this app? It's supposed to tell you when you die.
One movie will scare you
2 days
to death.
All right, thank you for tuning in. This is episode 7 of The Variant Verdict. Tonight, we watched the movie Countdown as our horror film for this this event. Let's just break it down from the beginning. What is this movie kind of about?
This movie is about an app that is going to go ahead and tell you the exact second that you're going to die. And we have our main character, Quinny, where she gets a hold of the app, realizes she has 3 days until she dies, and has to find a way to cheat it in order to go ahead and stay alive.
Yeah, and if that sounds familiar to you, it kind of follows the same story structure as the films like, Drag Me to Hell, My Soul to Take, Darkness Falls even. Like, I hate to make that comparison, but it falls into that line of, like, kind of corniness.
Well, not only that, this movie feels like it should have came out like 15 years ago, but phone apps weren't a thing really then, so that's why it didn't. But this is its Final Destination with an app. Like, that's ultimately what this movie is. And yeah, it was kind of ridiculous. It's like,
yeah, like, and most of the cast doesn't really they're working with a really ridiculous script. I mean, this story it tries to bring in, like, kind of family trauma to the premise, and none of that stuff really lands. The actors aren't that good. It would have been better if it had a little more comedic backbone. There was stuff to laugh at. The comedy is very thin, if not non-existent in this movie. I didn't think of it as a very funny film, and I wish it kind of had more laughs. I think most of the good horror movies coming out today kind of know how to find that mixture of comedy and horror.
Yeah.
And when you're filming comedy or horror, they kind of have the same thing that you need to land with audiences, that you kind of work the same enjoyment out of you. And I think they go hand in hand. This movie just takes its premise way too seriously.
No, yeah, there's barely any levity outside of the priest they meet for a few minutes. And there's also just, like, not a lot of anything. Like, a lot of deaths are off screen. Like, you don't even see a lot. Like, when you see the first death of the movie and how, like, you see something, but not much, you're kind of thinking, like, all right, maybe it's going to build up.
Yeah, they're kind of implied, like, a girl gets pulled off the ground, you see her legs dangling, but you don't see anyone getting eaten or anything.
Yeah, no.
It sticks to its PG. It seems, we never got a confirmation on the rating, but
I
think this movie definitely, if it's not a hard R, if it's an R at all.
Yeah, it's the softest R
I would argue
seen.
It's probably PG-13 just to be safe for audiences.
Wow, it's kind of bad of us to even think that we didn't even know what the rating was going into this movie.
Yeah, and all these characters in this movie, like, they don't use their best intelligence. They're also quick to believe everybody who talks about this app. You had that disbelief whenever a teenager in Nightmare on Elm Street said that Freddy was in my dreams and he's coming after me. Every one of the adults said, you're full of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
In this movie, everyone is just really quick to believe you.
Yeah.
They're fucking in on it. In fact, they go to a priest at one point in the film to kind of learn about demons. And this guy is like, he's not only all about it, he's like gung-ho. He becomes
like
kind of like...
he's like a priest nerd. Actually, he was probably, that whole scene of him just giddying out about demons and stuff was probably the best part of the movie.
Speaking of demons, yeah, because, like, this is a monster movie after all. I guess you could say that. How did you feel about the way that this monster was in the movie?
I mean, you barely see him, which necessarily isn't a horrible thing, but the thing that irks me about the monster is, so when they meet this priest, they literally pull out a book and open up a page which explains, like, who the demon was, and the picture in him is the exact same picture, like, image you get when you see him in person. Like, who the hell saw this guy so well where he's like, hold that Frey, I want to draw this. Like,
yeah, and it felt like they didn't even put a lot of time and effort into how long they actually were on screen. These people, most of the time, they're just acting against themselves, reacting to situations, but rarely is, like, the monster even on screen. And when he is, it's like you said, it's almost like they used the same images that he showed him to like explain the mythology, which by the way he conveniently knew all
about
first
it
getting
instantly. Like, wait
yeah,
a
I
second.
guess
Like,
as soon as teenagers come up to you say that they're trying to cheat death based on a mobile app, you know, you would immediately think you'd question the validity of those statements. But now everyone in this universe seems to be like completely believing
yeah, like, oh yeah, this is totally
that
a
mobile apps are a thing that can actually predict your
death,
time of
yeah.
death. In fact, I think there's another priest in this movie who's the only one who's like, "Nah, demons don't exist."
Yeah, he's like, no,
So there is
it's
like
more
one
of a metaphor.
counterbalance in
Yeah.
the movie, but that's about it.
No, but there's also other things that they have about this movie where it's like, the disclaimer. Once you accept the disclaimer, you accept that you're
Yeah,
fate.
there's terms and conditions when you download this app, and that becomes like a contention. And later on in the story, where like they feel like they overlooked it, they play on the fact that most people do download apps, don't look at the terms and conditions, and it's really like corny. They have the way to hack into this app and quite literally find that there's like Latin subtext in the binary code. And it's so ridiculous.
I mean, they tried. I guess.
Think
you could say
like
that.
Darkness Falls in the Tooth Fairy. This isn't like they're cut from the same cloth.
Well, this also reminds me of like that. When I think of the disclaimer thing, my brain immediately goes to South Park with the human centipede episode. Like,
Yeah,
like just be
exactly.
careful. It's like, oh, you didn't read it, you're fucked. So it's quite ridiculous. I mean,
I would say that the movies that I've seen that do this premise really well are like Drag Me to Hell and Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Those are examples where you can take a movie about a cursed object centered around teenagers, make it kind of coming of age, put a little heart into it, a little comedy, a little levity. It could be done right, at least entertaining, something you could sit through and watch. This movie was I was barely able to sit through it. I rarely ever feel like I gotta leave a movie early, but I kept checking the time, like, is this thing gonna end? It's a relatively short movie, and I still felt that way.
yeah. Well, one other thing I didn't mention in the synopsis part there was, this movie is also like, if you break, say like this phone knows when you're gonna die and you have to follow your fate to die. Now, if you were to do something like break a plan or something that would make you die the way you're supposed to, you break the terms and agreement, and
It actually notifies you to say,
and it
your
says,
terms have been broken on your app.
and from that point forward, like, demons follow you. So,
And can we talk about convenient plot point? They cannot delete this app, apparently.
Oh, yeah,
It's just
like-
undeletable.
Yeah, you can't do anything.
You can even go to your AT&T store, get a brand new phone.
and it's already pre-installed.
It's already going to be pre-installed. It ain't going anywhere. It's stuck with you.
It's
So forget about that. If you're trying to find plot holes already in this, they address them, and without really any logic behind
Yeah,
it.
I
They
mean-
still address that.
No, it is, but I mean, there's other things in the plot that are just like, I want to bash my head against the wall, but I'll let you guys figure that out. But one thing about this whole situation is how the main character is instantly convinced about this. Like you even said, most of the characters do, but like, anyone could have looked at the scenario that she went like pieced things together, and it would have just been coincidence.
Yeah, how about the part where she basically stumbles upon, I think it's online, and they look at these really bad clip art websites of obituaries from people that have, and they know all the stuff about them using their phone in this countdown app, and the obituaries, it's like crazy specific.
Yeah,
like
it's
it's almost like it's very sloppy in the
or
sense
just
of
the-
like, how are we going to push this story forward? Let's just make it the most convenient plotting ever, so that there's not a lot of investigative work here.
Or
like everything just falls into place.
Well,
in the
not
way
that
it
the
needs to.
immediate like extreme she would go to on a hunch. Like she has a suspicion it might be true, so she had to check the person's
And she's
phone.
never really wrong, and that's the weird part.
Yeah,
she
like,
guesses
everything's
this stuff
right.
way too perfectly.
No, well, yeah, like
She must have been
picks
through
up.
this before. it
That,
seems like.
you would
It's
think.
crazy.
This isn't her first death app. But no, like how she instantly goes to enter. The first person who dies, where she's piecing this all together, she needs to get into his phone. So she literally goes into the morgue to. Sorry for spoilers, but fuck it. This goes into the morgue and literally uses a dead body in order to get
and
into
she does
the
like
phone
a Face ID over
on a
it.
hunch. Like that's not something somebody does on a hunch. Like
Yeah, like all the characters, they act to extremes. There's this message that they apparently try to throw in there, where like kind of like the Me Too movement, about harassment in the workplace. It's kind of like this underlying subtext, and it doesn't land because
feels
it's so
really out of
over.
place.
Yeah, it's so overacted in a movie that's supposed to fill you up with dread. and then they kind of put this real world issue in there, and
it was also very minor. So like they do throw that in there that like
yeah, but it's like it's there, but it doesn't have a voice.
Yeah,
you know?
like, exactly. Like it's
doesn't
there,
land
but
at all.
it's just there to make like somebody look like a douche. That's pretty much it. Like, and I mean, and since we are pretty much going into spoilers at this point, I do have to say there was this quick moment of, okay, wait, hold on, this might actually be going somewhere, where let's just say that the app has driven somebody to almost become a killer. And in a way, it was like, oh, this might, and then it just dies. So it's like this,
and like
almost a moment of goodness.
They try to wrap up. Part of the rules is if somebody does get the app, apparently you can avoid death by dying prior to the time your clock runs, and that's kind of where the finale goes. Another person in the cast, he did download the app, and it becomes kind of like an enemy to the protagonist of the story, Quinny.
Yeah.
And yeah, they have this kind of like, and we were laughing about this final showdown. It's so over the top, and it's in the hospital wing. There's not a lot of abandoned hospital wings that I see often when I go to any hospitals. It's a very odd setting. Nobody interrupts them in this loud crash bang fight.
They're having shit's banging, shit's loud, and not a single person is like going, what the fuck?
And this goes back to how little you see this monster. I think that's the other. There's maybe a handful of scenes, less than 60 seconds apiece. Oh, yeah. And this is probably the most screen time that monster gets in the story.
Yeah.
It's awful. It just doesn't land. It's a snoozer.
Yeah.
What would you say is your final verdict on this? Do you recommend it?
No, I'd say save it. I mean, it will probably be on Netflix eventually, and if you've watched every other horror movie you can think of that's worth a damn, then check it out. I mean, it's a teen horror movie. It's anything special. I can't imagine anybody walked out of the screening scared. I mean, even though this movie is nothing but jump scares, it's just there's nothing about it that was actually scary, and there was nothing about it that was funny. There's really just nothing about it that was interesting. So
I agree with that 100%. I think Hollywood, you gotta take note of this. Hollywood is making movies that are intelligent horror films now.
Yeah.
We have movies like Us, Get Out, Jordan Peele's killing it. Then you have people like Ari Aster, who's putting out Hereditary and Midsommar. The bar's been stepped up a little bit.
A little bit,
I just don't feel that this movie, it belongs in 2001 with the other Dimension films that kind of are dudders.
Yeah.
That's where it belongs. It is absolute crap. I wouldn't recommend it. I would say go see Zombieland Double Tap if you want a little bit of October flair. If you have kids, go see Addams Family. That was better than this.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wish we did either one of those, but here we are.
That's it. And that's our Halloween episode, guys. Thank you for watching The Variant Verdict. This is Josh.
Sean.
Signing off. You guys have a good Halloween.
Like, share, and subscribe, and, make sure you tell everybody and check out our old videos.
Thank you, boys and ghouls.